What's up everybody, my name is Colby Novak, and in today's episode we're going to teach you exactly how to install a Hydro Ebrake into your 2015 or newer Subaru STI. Let's get to it. So there are a few quick things before we jump into installing this thing. We need to kind of know about the car before we dive into it and start cutting brake lines and all that stuff. This car is, well, it's very sensitive to the brakes. It's got one line from the master cylinder, or from the ABS system, that goes to each and every brake caliper. So we've got 4 lines total, 2 of them that we need to tap into. So there's problem number 1. So we're gonna have to figure out a way to join 2 lines into one. Number 2, doing that, so if you plan on keeping the ABS in this car, if you ever need to use it, it's gonna be a little bit iffy. So there's problem number 2, and then problem number 3, well, is actually the system itself. It likes to pulse a lot, especially if you like to slam on the brakes. So you need to be mindful and work around that problem. And obviously we can disable traction control and all that other stuff. But as long as you know how to drive the car and not make it do its thing that it wants to sometimes do, especially if you're driving pretty hard, you should be fine. And if you're a person like me that just takes this car out for rallycross, you're not doing any kind of tarmac drifting, because drifting on an all-wheel drive car is kind of stupid anyway. If you're just like me and doing a bunch of rallycross stuff, I think the way that I did this will be just fine for you. And you can still get to keep your awesome ABS just in case you're in the rain, you kind of need it. But you can also still go have some fun in the dirt on the weekends. So let's get to it. Now, the point of this video is not to be an in-depth tutorial. Believe it or not, I'm actually a film guy. I make films for a living, but yet this video is probably going to be a little bit poo because I'm used to having a big crew. But that's not the point. This video is not to be an in-depth tutorial. It's just kind of like an overview on how to kind of sort of do this. Now, the first thing is you need to have a secure mounting spot for this Hydro Ebrake. Now, I didn't really want to rip up my entire center console. I wanted to have some of the plastic still there, so me and my dad just whipped up a quick Ebrake mounting spot for it, and it looks pretty good, I might say. It's really secure, it's really sturdy, and it was cheap. It was free to do, so yeah. First step is to actually mount the Hydro Ebrake to the frame somehow, and that's completely up to you. However you feel like it should be mounted, whatever's comfortable for you. This will take some custom fabrication. There's no kit that you can just buy off the shelf for this sort of thing, so you'll need to have somebody either weld you up something or build something of some sort. There's plenty of videos here on YouTube on how to do this, so go find one of those videos. But first things first, you need to mount your Hydro to the actual car itself. Now the next thing we need to do is remove all this plastic. We need to get all the trim pieces off, that way we can get underneath the carpet and find these actual brake lines, which they're right here. There's 2 lines. They run left and right, so they're pretty easy. We just need to tap into these 2 and join them as one. So now we actually need to run a brake line from the master cylinder, this is the outlet, down underneath the carpet, and then we need to make a sort of a T-joint and join these 2 lines together. So simply just run your cable up to the master cylinder however you see fit. You can go above the carpet if you've got some cool braided line like I do. You can find this at any local race shop. They should be able to help you out. It's a 7/16 20 thread. It's a little weird. You're not going to find it at any AutoZone or O'Reilly's. This is a specialty thread. It's a high performance thread, at least from what I found. So any race shop should be able to help you out. Next, we need to make some brake lines. Now, there are tons of videos on how to flare and all that kind of stuff. We're not going to go into too much detail on how to flare your lines, but you need to go ahead, get some brake line from O'Reilly or AutoZone or whatever parts place you have locally. You need to have a bender, a double flare tool, and then all your fittings. I went with 3/16 brake line. I bought the pre-flared lines because I was able to actually measure out how much length I needed. So that's kind of cool. So if you just measure out all your runs, you can go ahead and buy it pre-flared. That way all the hard work's done, because that's where most of your leaks are going to come from, is a bad flare. But all you need is a simple bender. This one cost me $9 on Amazon, and just go ahead and bend you some brake lines. Now once you've got your brake lines all bent up and nicely done, ready to go in, for me, I went ahead and went to an AN3. I think that's how you say it. It's a racing braided brake line fitting standard. I went and adapted my 3/8 inch brake line to an actual race car fitting. It just makes it a little easier. Those fittings are less prone to leaking, and they're just easier to work with in general. So I went ahead and tapped into 2 of those lines and made that fitting on there. And now we're going to join it into a complete unit, like into one single line, from these 2 like little nipple looking things up to the master cylinder. And then once we're into the master cylinder, there's the little bitty outlet that's kind of angled upwards a little bit. That is your outlet, and that needs to go from there all the way to your other end of your 2 brake lines. You need to join them into a T-joiner, and then you're pretty much good to go. So you'll split basically 2 lines into one, goes into your master cylinder. Now from your master cylinder goes out and then back into 2 lines again, so pretty easy. And then once you have all that done, it's really nothing to it. If you just have to make sure nothing leaks and everything's good to go. You do need to bleed your brakes. That's very, very important. There will be air in the lines. There's no way around it since you're installing a whole new piece of the line. You're installing something completely new into the system. There's gonna be tons of air in the hose and tons of air in the lines. There's really no way around it. So you need to make sure you thoroughly pump your brakes. We put DOT4 in this vehicle. It calls for a DOT4 brake fluid. So go to your local auto parts store and they should have plenty of that. Pick up quite a bit of fluid because you're gonna basically do a complete flush. You're gonna wanna bleed your brakes a little bit differently than the manufacturer says. You wanna definitely get all the air out of the lines as fast as you can. In the rear and the front lines shouldn't really have to be touched that much. You still want to bleed them just to make sure there's no air in there, but you definitely need to bleed your brakes. There are plenty of videos on how to bleed your brakes, and quite frankly, if you do not know how to bleed your brakes and you're attempting this install, you probably shouldn't be doing that, but it's pretty much easy, you know, guys. It's really not too hard. And do make sure that you go to your car wash after installing all this crap. There's probably going to be some brake fluid on your wheels and your paint and all that stuff. This stuff is really corrosive if it sits there over time, so make sure you go wash that off real quick, and yeah, that's it. Yeah, so all in all, I thought this install was actually pretty easy. Brakes kind of intimidated me before because I've never really messed with them, but doing the research and asking the mechanics over at Dirtfish over in Seattle, which, by the way, if you are a Subaru guy and you've never been to Dirtfish, would highly recommend it. And they've got a bunch of cool stuff on their channel, but it was pretty easy. It's nothing to be intimidated for, but like I said, if you are unsure about anything and you can't complete certain steps in this process, be sure to always take it to your local mechanic. That way it's always done right. You know that's done right, and if something messes up, it's on them. So that's it for this episode, guys. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I'll try to answer them, but like I said, I'm not a mechanic, so I don't know how good they'll be. But yeah, so take it easy, guys, and happy racing.
Okay, there we go.